Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to beautiful, rainy Ormond Beach, Florida. It is Wednesday, August 1st. This is another edition of Grassroots Motorsports Live, presented by CRC Industries. I'm JG Pasterjack. Welcome to the show, everybody. I see a bunch of our friends here already. Before we get started, let me ask you a couple of favors. First one is pour one out, throw a little care in the wind for our director, Katie, who is actually directing from home tonight. She got rear-ended, totaled her car, and is now sitting at home. She's monitoring the social media, but that's why I had to bring myself in today. She's at home with like the full Slippin' Jimmy neck brace on and just zonked full of painkillers and muscle relaxants. But she's keeping up, and we wish her the best and cannot wait for her to get back in a week or two. But good on you, young lady, for working there at your desk at home. So she is watching that Grassroots Motorsports feed right now. Other thing I want you to do is, now we have a nice little crowd in here. I want everybody, especially you folks on Facebook, to go down and throw a comment in the comment section. I don't care what you say. I don't care if you just do that thing where you type an 8 and a bunch of equal signs and a capital D. I don't care what you do. Just throw something down in those comment section. Kind of lets Facebook know that we got something going on here, which is cool, which it is, and fools their algorithms a little bit. And we have a lot of fun, so just make a comment. And if you would, throw us a like, throw us a share. If you're watching us on YouTube tonight, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You get updates on all of our videos, whether we're going live or we post a new pre-recorded video. Here is what we're looking at tonight, folks. The new Hyundai Veloster R-Spec. We're gonna have Mike Evanoff from Hyundai, product manager at Hyundai, on with us in just a couple of minutes to answer your questions. I wanna thank him for being with us. Before we do that though, let me tell you about the folks that make this show possible. That is our friends at CRC Industries. You can check them out at crcindustries.com. Even better, check them out at a major retailer near you: Lowe's, Home Depot, Harbor Freight, Advanced Auto Parts, Napa Auto Parts, O'Reilly Auto Parts. Any of those places, you can buy CRC stuff. We use some of our CRC screen cleaner to clean our lenses and our screens right before the show. We are true believers because it's a great product and because they support this world that we are living in. Also, check out our friends at Autobooks Aerobooks, the world's greatest bookstore in Burbank, California, autobooks-aerobooks.com. You can check out tens of thousands of books, magazines, DVDs, and collectibles on every facet of transportation, motorsports, or the history of vehicles in motion, folks. A great place to visit if you happen to be out in Southern California, because they have author signings and events every week. If you can't make it out there, check them out on the web at autobooks-aerobooks.com. All right. Oh my God, we got people in here from Canada tonight. We got, who else we got? Some of our regulars are watching. Our friend Angela's watching. Let us get Mike on the line here. Let me do a couple of highly involved technical things, and we will get Mike Evanoff here. Mike, can you hear us?
Sure can.
Awesome. And we have that. That's actually that's a fantastic headshot. You look like kind of a handsome young Michael McDonald in your headshot. So good on you, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so Mike is a product manager at Hyundai. His area of expertise is the Veloster line, as well as a couple of other lines. Mike is also a longtime GRM subscriber and fan. So straight off the bat, I just want to let you know, it's very cool for us as a publication and as a niche publication to know that we've got, enthusiasts making enthusiast cars at these manufacturers. What's your background with cars and with Hyundai as well, Mike?
Well, I've been been with Hyundai for just over 6 years now. I was at another original equipment manufacturer prior to that. So basically, I've enjoyed cars since day one. My father worked at Ford Motor Company and GM back in the day, so it's kind of brought up with that background, and it's been something I've always wanted to do, and I've been doing it, basically ever since I've been working. So enjoy being in the industry and bringing cars like this to market.
So let's talk a little bit about the Veloster R-Spec. this is a difficult segment you guys are in, because you are in a segment with stuff like the GTI, with stuff like the Honda Civic Si. These are fairly iconic nameplates. Is it a little is it intimidating to come in and say we're going to compete with these cars? What do you have to even bring to the market to start competing with iconic nameplates like that?
Yeah, so we're in our second generation of Veloster now. The first one, I always kind of liken it to a Swiss Army knife. It tried to do a lot of things, but maybe not everything really to some of the levels we wanted. We have a new small CUV called the Kona that is out now, so that allowed us with this generation to put it more in a sporty direction. So if you want truly a small utility vehicle, you can get Kona, but that allows, like I said, Veloster to go sportier. And you mentioned those cars like GTI, yeah, and GTI is at a higher price point. Civic Si is more kind of, even though we're undercutting Civic Si, it's still maybe a little bit closer in price. But yeah, it's tough, and it's an important car for us. It's like, we call it a passion project. Both my colleagues in Korea and here in the United States, I mean, it's a small niche car, but it provides a lot of fun, and I'm happy to say this generation, I think, truly delivers on that fun to drive performance.
Well, yeah, and so this is the second generation of this car, and we were talking a little earlier before the show. This is a fairly substantial change chassis-wise from the first generation car. Driving it, we'll talk a little bit about driving impressions later, but it feels stiffer. It feels more solid. It feels more refined. How different is this chassis than the Gen 1?
Yeah, I remember when I first drove some of the early prototypes. God, it may have been a year and a half now. And at that early stage, you never know what you're getting. But I was shocked at how rigid the body was and the body control. So we made a lot of fundamental changes. The last generation was kind of a mix-up a little bit between some accent parts and some Elantra parts. So where this generation is much more solid, body rigidity is much better, and it's basically more based on Elantra GT, which has the same wheelbase. And one of the fundamental biggest changes is the addition of the multi-link rear suspension, even on the 2-liter base car and on the turbos. The last generation car was a solid beam rear axle, and putting that multi-link rear really allows the engineers a lot more latitude when they're tuning, and in general everything improves with the car with the addition of that suspension.
Awesome. All right, let's start off taking a look under the hood here a little bit. And this is the R-Spec. I want to talk about the package a little bit as we get into it, but this is sort of the enthusiast focused level of the turbo spec. There's a little bit more heavily contented turbo spec, but this is I don't even want to call it decontented. This is the sort of right content for an enthusiast car, but it does have the highest output engine currently available in the Veloster line. So tell us a little bit about we'll definitely be teasing that in a few minutes, but tell us a little bit about this 2-liter 201 horsepower direct injection turbo engine. Tell us a little bit about what's going on here.
So 201 horsepower, 195 pound-feet of torque. Max torque comes in at like a really low 1,500 RPMs and goes to about 4,500 RPMs. And you got that max torque during that whole range of the rev range. So around town, you really feel that torque. The torque comes in a little bit. We had the 1.6-liter turbo in the last generation, but there have been some enhancements made on this time. Like I said, that torque comes in about 250 RPMs lower, that max torque, so you really feel that drivability. I know we're not talking about the 2-liter as much, but the base car, we upgraded from a 1.6 normally aspirated to a 2-liter normally aspirated engine, so you've got more horsepower, more torque, and more drivability, and a really nice balanced base non-turbo car. But the turbo is definitely where the fun is. Yeah, and we have of course we have a fairly hardcore crowd that watches the show. One of our autocrossers wants to know what the top speed is in second gear. I'm in second gear at like 56 miles an hour in this thing. So it's right even with I would say its contemporaries. If you're comparing it to something like a Fiesta ST, maybe it's basically speeds and gears are right about there with the other cars.
One of the things that I really dig about the car in general, Mike, is there's an attention to detail here that I really like, that you don't always see in a segment where manufacturers are trying to hit a price point or trying to save some money. Like even down
Right.
to the little bit of thermal insulation here on the intake. You know, that's a conscious decision. That's a nice touch that somebody made that decision to put some heat wrap on that intake there, because it would make the car better. And I'm sure that, you know, that cost Hyundai something, but it's neat
Right,
to
right.
see people making those decisions. And somebody mentioned earlier, no fake hood vents on this thing.
Nope, nope. We took those out midway through the last generation. I got sick of reading all that. But yeah, none of that, all purposeful on this car, definitely. So, and you talk about that, you know, those little attention to details. That's the kind of stuff we fight with, or I should say negotiate with R&D and engineering all the time, because everything does add up. And if you're not careful, you will have a car that's got some material costs that's, you know, astronomically high. So you got to make the right decisions, I guess, and, you know, hopefully the consumer sees the end result from it.
So let's talk about the R-Spec package a little bit, or actually take us through the various turbo option packages, because one thing that I dug about the R-Spec was it seemed to have the right options from the point of view of an enthusiast. I told you before the show, if I was going to sit down and order a car item by item, it'd be pretty close to this car. And you know, you came out and admitted that this was basically, you know, as an enthusiast, a package that you kind of came up with. So tell us a little bit about the content.
So I think, well, first of all, it goes back to that first generation car. We launched the R-Spec in 14 model year 2014 when I was here. So that was kind of new to the lineup. So a lot of that. A lot of strategy and a lot of that thinking carried over into this car. So we basically, you know, R-Spec is, we've had other models, whether it be Genesis Coupe or whatnot in the past historically, but typically, you know, a lower price, lowest weight, best bang for the buck, and we always try and reduce complexity as well, so you don't have all these different option packages. There's basically only 5 configurations of total Veloster, and that's with 2 powertrains. But you know, I resisted things like sunroof and leather and some other things in that R-Spec that, you know, push price up, push weight up, especially with a sunroof weight, you know, where you don't want it up high. That's where you get the fantastic Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tire and the B&M shifter that we talked about as well. It's manual transmission only. It is kind of, it just, you know, I made one concession. I added proximity key or push button start at the last minute just for convenience, but tried to resist, you know, checking too many boxes of all the options, and brought it in at a price point that at $22,900, I think, you know, is a very reasonable price point for what you get.
Yeah, and this car we're looking at with destination is like 23.7, and that's a lot of car for the money. So you mentioned trying to keep the weight down. We're actually going to have this car on the scales towards the end of the show. We're going to throw it on our intercom scales. We have a brand new feature we are debuting tonight. It is What's It Weigh, presented by Intercomp, which every twice a month we will take a car or some other heavy object, weigh it on our Intercomp scales. Our viewers will get to guess what the weight of that vehicle or object is, and whoever comes the closest will win a fabulous GRM prize package. And Mike, I'm sorry you're not eligible, but we would love to hear your guesses as well. But we can probably make sure a lovely GRM prize package shows up at your door as well. So
awesome, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So we mentioned the B&M shifter. I was very impressed with the shifter. We'll talk a little bit about that in the driving impressions. Also, let's talk a little bit about the architecture of this car being a 3-door hatchback, or what do you call it, a 4-door? Do you call it a 3-door hatchback? What's the technical term for it?
We refer to it as a 2+1. Okay. So, and that was one of the iconic things in the first generation car. That's really what kind of put Veloster on the map, was that door configuration. So that was when you started talking about the next generation car. That's something we absolutely had to have in this generation just to move that along. And it you know, the designers can talk to it a little bit better than I can, but I'll steal some words from them. You know, it really provides you 2 different like experiences. When you approach the car from the driver's side, it's just a regular kind of coupe single door, so that's more of the driver focus side, and we carry that into the interior as well. But then you move over to the passenger side, and it's more of a social experience. So you've got room to get in and out of the back seat. I know car seats would fit in the last generation car, which makes it really easy to access. So it's kind of like business on one side, party on the other side. So it kind of defines the El Camino comes to mind, but anyway, it kind of defines what the car is, and it's quirky, and we wanted to keep it quirky. And I know some people don't like the door configuration. I'm very OCD, and surprisingly doesn't bother me at all, because I know that's what the car's for.
Well, for the first time when we were looking at it before here, I just noticed that the doors on both sides, the front doors are a different size. The driver's door is a good 8 inches longer than the passenger door for the front. I always thought the car was basically symmetrical.
Like a half door?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So yeah, when you look down the side, you actually see that the B pillar is offset because they wanted to not compromise that rear seat ingress and egress by having a smaller door. So yeah, both doors on that side are a little bit smaller, but then you get the true two-door coupe-like on the driver's side.
So who do you want to buy this car, or I'd say who is buying these cars versus who do you want to buy this car?
It typically, if I have a little time here, I can kind of go into the strategy of it. Long story short, it is a younger buyer than our overall brand average. But we call Veloster, this was the first generation. This definitely carries over into this car. We call it a reverse halo. Many manufacturers have halo cars that are six-figure supercars, and they're kind of unattainable to everybody. But basically, a reverse halo is just that. It's at an affordable price point. It brings younger buyers to the brand, and then based on their life stage, we want to maintain them in the brand. And I went back and looked at all the data from when we first launched Veloster, and yeah, it was a younger buyer, it was a more affluent buyer, a more educated buyer. And when it came time to sell that Veloster, a very high percentage, almost 55%, stayed within the Hyundai brand, regardless of what they bought, but they bought another Hyundai. And if you look at other sporty or mid-sized compact cars, they were in like the 20s and 30s. So we were like the third highest kind of loyalty or retention. So I think it did what it intended, and that's why we're pushing on with this car in this generation as well.
And this is certainly a car with the Pilot Sport 4s with the additions.
Yep.
This is a car I'd be happy taking to a track, take to an autocross. I think if you're talking to somebody who might be considering like a Fiesta ST,
yep.
This is an absolute direct competitor for that with even better ergonomics for my money.
Yeah, I mean, I did some seat time in both the Focus ST and a Fiesta ST, and you're probably well aware, and your viewers are probably really disappointed, is those cars won't be continuing on here in the United States. Yeah. And I like the Fiesta ST. It was a fun car, like lift throttle oversteer, and it's just I couldn't get past the interior size and some of the materials because it's basically a B segment car. So I think this fills that role. Find a home for people who are coming out of their Fiesta STs and Focus STs, among other cars. But I definitely, I agree. It definitely fits the bill.
What is dimensionally? Where does this car stack up to those cars? Because one thing that struck me about this car from behind the wheel is you do kind of get that classic Honda feel almost of a nice airy interior, but the corners being very close to you and having a good sense of where each corner of the car is. Which is not something you get in a lot of modern cars today with modern crash protection and airbags all over the place. Belt lines are going up and windshields are coming up, and you guys have managed to make this thing feel nice and tidy and nimble. Where does this stack up physical size-wise against its competitors?
Yeah, it's funny how you mentioned that, how cars have gotten so much higher and bigger and less glass, more body. I have to admit, I have an 85 MR2, and every time I get in and drive it, it reminds me of how driving used to be, and A-pillars are thin as straws, and just it's that experience. But from a size perspective, I mean, it's definitely bigger than a Mini Cooper, but smaller than say like a Civic Coupe. So it kind of falls in between there. Definitely, if you know our Elantra GT, like I said, it's the same wheelbase, but overhangs are shorter, overall height is lower, so a little bit more agile than the Elantra GT, just based on size and center of gravity.
So I didn't know you were an MR2 guy, man. I've had a couple 85. In fact, I sold my last 85 to Tom Suttard, and bought a 91 a couple of years ago. Yeah, we've been MR2 nerds for a long time. So so that's how cool Hyundai is. Everybody is they got MR2 guys working designing their products. Okay, here's what we're gonna do, Mike. We're gonna take a little break with you, and we're gonna throw on a little video we did on some driving impressions of the car. So about 10 or 12 minutes of that. When we come back, we're gonna have the car up on the lift. We'll take a look at some of the stuff underneath it and get some more information from you. So this is a good opportunity to take a break, and we'll be back to you in just a few minutes, man. All right, folks. Before we go to our driving impression video here, first off, thanks for hanging out tonight. Thanks for being with us and talking about this very cool car. Also want to thank the folks that make this show possible. Talking about our friends at CRC Industries. Check them out. CRCindustries.com. This is the can. This is the actual can of display cleaner that I use to clean that camera lens right there, because I want you to see me as clearly as possible. Because how are you gonna? There's no making this any better. So let's just get it as clear as possible, and we'll start from a nice index. Check them out, crcindustries.com. Even better, check them out at a major retailer near you: Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, Harbor Freight, O'Reilly Auto Parts, Napa Auto Parts, Advance Auto Parts. Any major store has got that CRC stuff. When you're buying that CRC stuff, not just getting a good product, getting a product from a company that supports this industry that we live and work and have fun in. So please check them out. Also, check out our friends at Autobooks, Aerobooks. They're in Burbank, California, the world's greatest bookstore, autobooks-aerobooks.com. Tens of thousands of books, magazines, DVDs, collectibles on every type of transportation or motorsports you can possibly imagine. If you can get out there in person in Burbank, they have awesome live events every week. Cruise-ins, author signings, cars and coffee events. So check them out in person. If not, check them out on the web at autobooks-aerobooks.com. And coming up towards the end of the show, we're going to do our Intercomp What's It Weigh guessing game. I know a lot of guesses have come in already. Those are not official. We'll start a clock on the guesses. You can put your guesses in as to what this Hyundai Veloster R-Spec weighs in our Intercomp What's It Weigh segment, and we will have fabulous prizes to whoever comes closest on that. So you can throw all the guesses out there you want now and discuss it amongst yourselves, but none of those count. Just the ones during the actual competition are going to be the guesses that we will take. All right, let us go to some driving impressions here. If I can find it. And again, a big shout out to Katie, who is recuperating at home. She was not able to make it here due to her wearing a giant neck brace and being full of pills from her car wreck, but she's doing the Lord's work there at home. So I am doing some of the tech duties here. So we will go live now to me in the car. Hey, oh, there you are. JG, can you hear me? Are you there? Can you?
Yes. Hello, I'm here. I can hear you.
You look like you're actually in the garage here. Is that what's going on? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm right behind you. I'm in the. Hi, hello. Here we are. Hello.
I don't understand. How are you there? But I'm here talking to you, and you're in the car.
You know, this bit wasn't funny for like 4 shows, so can we please just get on with it now? Okay, great. Let's roll the window up and talk about some driving impressions. I actually shot a little driving impression video yesterday. It was in a pouring rainstorm, and I was very distracted, and it just didn't work out. So I'm doing it again here live in the... Yes. Hello, I'm here. I can hear you.
We had some technical difficulties. I'm sorry. We have to do the whole bit again.
Right behind you. I'm in the... Hi, hello.
Yes,
here we are. Hello.
You're there, and I'm listening to you. Oh, this just came off the rails today, didn't it?
you know, this bit wasn't funny for like 4 shows, so can we please just get on with it now? Okay, great. Let's roll the window up and talk about some driving impressions. I actually shot a little driving impression video yesterday. It was in a pouring rainstorm and I was very distracted and it just didn't work out. So I'm doing it again here live in the shop. I'm actually glad I got to take another shot at it because some more stuff has presented itself to me with this car. I've had the chance now to live with this car for about 5 or 6 days, and the more I live with it, the more it grows on me. And driving it around in the rain yesterday, I noticed another one of these really cool sort of attention to detail things that just crop up all over this car as I live with it longer and longer. We probably already mentioned the thermal insulation under the hood on the intake pipe. That's just one more example of something under the hood that's another little attention to detail that you don't often see in cars in this sort of budget, high value range. There's a lot of really cool just details about this car I start to notice. For example, yesterday when it was raining, when you switch the wipers from one function to another, you get a momentary update on the driver information center of what function the wipers are in. Seems like a small detail, but it makes a big difference. It's one less thing you have to distract yourself from to figure out which position that wiper stalk is in. You can look right at that driver information center, shows you the information, you can get your eyes back to the road, and there's a lot of stuff like that in here. Let's start from the beginning though. The first thing that strikes me about this car that I like is the ergonomics. I'm a sucker for good ergonomics, and the Veloster really nails it. And the Veloster nails it without being an overly large car for some reason either. I don't know how it actually does that, but it manages to. There's great ergonomics. The wheel, pedal, shifter relationship is fantastic, but you also feel very close to the individual corners of the car. So the car feels tidy, it feels compact, but it doesn't feel small because you have a nice place to do your work inside. You've got lots of elbow room, you've got lots of shoulder room, you've got lots of hip room, your legs are free to relax, but you're not cramped in here at all. But each of these corners actually feels very close to you. I think on an autocross course, on a road course, this car would be very satisfying to drive because you do feel so in touch with each corners. Likewise, the visibility. The visibility out of this thing is fantastic, which for a modern car, there are some struggles in that regard. As we get airbags mounted in A-pillars, in window headers, as the side crash protection bars come up and our windows get smaller, visibility tends to suffer a little bit on modern cars. Somehow Hyundai has managed to give you good visibility over the hood. You've got a nice view over the hood. You've got, you know, better than average views out the side. You can kind of get your elbow up here on the side window without it, you know, being hiked up in the air. And they've managed to do that without bringing the seat up too high and hanging your legs out in midair. I've got really short, stumpy little legs, so I don't like a seat that's abnormally high, but you actually do have some nice height adjustment on the seat here. And you've got good ways to sort of personalize this interior for you. Talk a little bit more about the interior. I'm a huge fan of 1980s Japanese industrial design in automobiles. I grew up with stuff like the Mitsubishi Starion and the Toyota Supra, and I loved the design of the interiors of those cars. Now, some of that design didn't age well, but you can't sit here and tell me that it wasn't bold and adventurous and didn't make a statement. And there are statements being made in here. And again, for a car in this budget category, there is a conscious effort to design things in here that I really like. There's a very cool yellow and gray color scheme. There's nice textures on a lot of the plastics in here. There's little additional sort of visual excitement, you have visual details added into like the buttons and the switches, and everything feels very nice. It has a very engineered feel and not simply an assembled feel. And that carries over to the controls, the shifter, the clutch, the steering. It's light without feeling cheap. The shifter especially one of the best stock shifters I think I've ever felt in a car in this class. It has, and I hate to go to other companies to make my references, but it has that Honda lightness with an additional bit of sort of crispness and resistance that actually makes you feel like you're driving a little bit sportier car. And it's so imagine the lightness of a Honda gearbox with some additional positivity and, you know, a nice pivot point on the gear shift. Very, very well designed stuff. If I had to pick a few nits, and I certainly can, you know, no car is perfect. If I had to do a little bit of nitpicking, the first thing I would bring up would be the heel and toe. Although the pedals are in a great position as far as distance from your hips and distance from the seat back in relation to where the wheel is, brake pedal and throttle pedal are not really perfectly placed for just that instant instinctive heel and toe operation. So I would think that it's something you could get used to. You know, I have a size 10.5 foot, so fairly average, and I can do it. You know, I can certainly manage, but it's not something that happened just by instinct the first time I hit the brakes and tried to downshift. It took me a couple of times to practice. So it's certainly something you could get used to, but, you know, not exactly ideal. Other thing is the steering. Very direct, very communicative, especially under load. When it's not under load, you say you're just going down the highway straight, a little bit light. If you're not really paying attention, the car can tend to wander. I like to feel a little bit more self-centering, maybe a little bit more resistance in the direct on center steering. That's something that might be able to be taken care of with an alignment, but something I definitely noticed. Good response, good power, good brakes. Very easy car to drive. I think this is a car you could hop in at a track day, at an autocross, and go 95% right out of the box without it really doing anything scary. There has definitely been a huge upgrade between the first generation of these cars and this current second generation of these cars. This feels like a much stiffer, a much more sophisticated car, and it feels like a legit contender for you know, being in that hot hatch category right now, which is a difficult. Boy, that's a tough market to hop into when you're talking about stuff like the Volkswagen GTI and the Honda Civic Si and the Subaru WRX. You know, that's big boy leagues right there. And for a company to go in there, you got to be serious about the product. And this is a serious product. When you look at the price too, $23,700 is what this car stickers out at. And this car, again, we talk about attention to detail. This car is well equipped without being bloated. And what I mean by that is this R-Spec package seems to have everything that somebody like me, or me in particular, would want in a car like this, and nothing I don't. It doesn't have a sunroof. You have a little bit more room for your head with a helmet on, but it does have Apple CarPlay. It does have a couple of nice USB ports for me to plug stuff in here. It's got, you know, very logically laid out, positively acting controls down here. I have a knob to turn the radio station, and I have a knob to change the fan speed. I don't have to go into a bunch of menus and change that stuff. And while that may put a few more physical buttons on the dash than, say, something like a Volkswagen, where all the controls are done through you know, a touchscreen, I'm fine with that, especially when they're good looking, well designed, positively acting buttons. Like the ones in these. I like having that instant feedback and that instant access to stuff. And that's kind of the theme of this car. Everything just kind of works, and everything is very easily within reach. You know, whenever we get a new press car every week, there's always that learning curve when, okay, we figure out, how do I adjust the mirrors? How do I change the, how do I set the AC where I want it? How do I get, you know, yacht rock on the Sirius? But this one, everything is very instinctual, and that doesn't happen by accident. That only comes with a lot of research, a lot of good design, and you know, kudos to Hyundai for making it happen. in this. So, well done. We're going to get back to looking at the car and talking to the folks from Hyundai. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us here. And one last report. Let's talk about fuel economy. My drive to work is about 20 minutes. It's about 15 miles, a little bit of freeway in there, about 3 or 4 miles of freeway. The rest of it is, not urban driving, but city driving, and close to 30 miles a gallon on that trip. Every day going back and forth this week. Pure highway driving, nearly 40 miles a gallon. I saw high 30s in a couple of extended cruises. If you're setting the cruise control at 70, 72, 73 miles an hour, you're talking about real high 30 mile a gallon average. And this is a car with 200 horsepower. That's a sporty piece of equipment that's also really, really efficient. So again, right in that sporty Honda range of performance and economy. So well done, Hyundai, on this one. All right, for real this time, back to the studio, which we're in, and me live. Thank you.
All right, we are back. So, Mike, one of the things I really touched on during my driving impressions was the sort of perceived nimbleness of this car. There's just a sense of agility that frankly I think was not always there in the first generation of these cars. Was that really one of your priorities going forward with this thing, was making it a little bit more driver friendly and exciting?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, turn in, I think, is really improved, especially when you equip it with those Pilot Sport 4 tires. It's got just a tremendous amount of grip. Even though it's the rear suspension, as you know, obviously, I mean, can affect steering, can affect turning, can affect everything in the front of the car as well, too. So I think just, like I said, that changed that multi-link, really just changed the overall dynamics and capabilities and truly put this car into another performance level.
Yeah, so we did, when we pulled the wheels off here, we did notice this thing's got plenty of tire on it, 225 40s. A nice bit of nice bit of tire. Tell me a little bit about the diff in here. What's your limited slip strategy for this? That's a big important thing for going fast.
Yeah, it is an open diff. It does have torque vectoring control, so there is a brake actuated system, tuned a little bit more aggressively for Veloster. We're going to a torque vectoring brake system on all our cars, but each one gets its own unique tuning and logarithms. So Veloster gets a little bit more. As far as diffs are concerned, a lot of the people I drove with in Austin, they mentioned it after the fact, but I'm like, did you really notice it? Unless you're autocrossing, and I can get it, but a lot of especially with that summer tire, that Michelin tire, it doesn't really rear its ugly head that much, and the torque vectoring control kind of takes care of it. So for a full actually a hydraulic, electronically controlled limited slip, we'll have to wait till later towards the end of the year when the Veloster N comes to our states.
Yeah, and we do have a little teaser coming up on the Veloster N. We'd love to talk to you about that, because I know there have been some early previews of that at the Nürburgring, actually. And for a manufacturer to launch a car at the Nürburgring, you've got to be fairly serious about it. So we'll have a little teaser on that in a few minutes. But we're taking a look underneath here. So how much chassis does this vehicle share with other Hyundai products? Is this are these subframes and cradles, or do they cross over to other models?
Yeah, to the best of my ability. Unfortunately, I drive a desk. I don't get to climb under the cars that much. But like I said, a Launcher GT is probably the most similar with the suspension setup. It also has a 2-liter and a 1.6 turbo, so engine dimensions are similar. There are some unique features on even on rear suspension for Veloster that aren't on a Launcher Sport or a Launcher GT Sport. Like we have aluminum carriers in the rear that were adopted at shave something like, I'd have to look it up, but almost like 4 pounds a corner in the rear. So it's even got improvements over over some of the other cars in the lineup. But I'd say Launcher GT is probably the closest.
Yeah, this we're looking at the rear right now, and we've got a nice set of aluminum hubs back here, which are actually nice and relieved in here, so there's not a lot of extra meat on them. Again, there's a lot of nice little attention to detail on this car that you don't always enjoy in this segment, and it's fun to look at, to see somebody that actually did some engineering on this thing. Got some camber adjustment in the back, it looks like, and no real provision for camber adjustment up front. What is Hyundai's relationship with the aftermarket? Because that's always an important thing for the person you're selling this car to is probably going to be a customer for some aftermarket stuff at some point.
Yeah, I've long been a believer that what's available in the aftermarket helps drive sales at the new dealer at the showroom. If they and not that I'm condoning or endorsing all that, but what's available out there kind of will drive a lot of people's purchase decisions, and Hyundai's always been a little challenged with that. I can't go into too much detail, but we are working with some reputable manufacturers. We gave them access to early cars, and hopefully by SEMA timing we'll have some announcements for possibly some improvements or some products.
Oh, very cool. Somebody, one of our Facebook viewers, wants to know about any possible factory type motorsport entry in something like TCR racing. Is that a possibility?
Yeah.
I know you guys have a long history in rallycross, obviously.
Yeah, and WRC program, we were back in, they had the accent way back in the day, and now they rally the I-20 for the last three or four seasons. But we, TCR is all new to the United States this year, and we are in it. We're partnered with Brian Hurd at Autosport, so we're in the Pirelli World Challenge TCR, currently leading both the team and the manufacturer points. The car is I-30N TCR, which is produced at the same. I was actually at the factory 2 weeks ago, produced where they produced the WRC car as well. So at HMSG, which is Hyundai Motorsport Europe or Germany. So it's built on a different side of that building, but right where the WRC car is, and it's been very, very successful all over the world, and especially here in the United States. Many podiums, and it's basically us and the Civic Type R battling out every weekend. I was able to get to the Portland race a couple weekends ago. It's a lot of fun because we understand, racing is that heritage is very important, and that credibility, and to build the N, you just can't say, hey, we do this. I mean, we have to actually go out and do it.
Yeah. Does it feel a little bit when you're talking about, especially about a car like this, that you're in a marketplace with GTI and with Civic Si? Is there some sense that you guys almost have to try a little bit harder just to keep up? And obviously Hyundai has made massive strides in the 20, 30 years that they've been a real force in America. Where do you see Hyundai now in the marketplace and sort of in just are you there yet?
I think we're definitely going in the right direction and making huge leaps and bounds and very quickly. You talk about GTI, that's in its seven and a half generation now. Civic Si has been around forever, so those cars don't earn that reputation overnight. And Veloster's just here in its just infancy of its second generation, and that combined with racing, we've always been known for value and giving you a lot of features and content for good value, but maybe dynamically wasn't always top notch. But I think we're maintaining that value. But as you'll see with this car and future cars coming down the road, the performance is definitely getting there, and it's very, very top level and competes, I think, very strongly with both Civic Si and even GTI, which is intended more of a Veloster N competitor based on price and everything else. So, but I think Veloster N even exceeds those cars based on what I've seen in Europe.
And there's a great segue. Let's take we've got a quick bit of B-roll you guys sent us on the Veloster N. Let me take a look at that real quick. And we'd love to hear a little bit about that car, because that is definitely something that interests us quite a bit. So let's take a look at So you guys rolled out the Veloster N just a few weeks ago at the Nürburgring, and that's no small feat. That takes some courage to roll out a new performance car there. Tell us a little bit about where you see that car fitting into the hierarchy of Hyundai.
Yeah, and the Nürburgring is very important to that car because a lot of the development was there. And I'll go into it just real briefly because we can do a whole separate episode on N. N stands for Namyang, which is our R&D facility in Korea, but then also Nürburgring, where we have also a technical center. A lot of the development, both for i30N and now Veloster N, were done on the Nürburgring. So definitely, and Albert Biermann, who has been with Hyundai now for about I think 4 or 5 years, came from BMW M division. He wouldn't do an event or even consider a car that couldn't handle Nürburgring duty. So it definitely was the only place to do it for that initial global reveal. And I must say, we had a great time. It was so much fun. Unfortunately, I didn't get to drive. Went all the way there and didn't drive it, but at least got some ride-alongs and whatnot. It's just a fantastic place to experience. Something I've always wanted to do, and finally got to do it.
So, yeah, it's an amazing facility, and the chance to drive anything there is very cool. And I would imagine the chance to drive a car that you had a hand in the development of is even more satisfying. So. I guess the big questions when it comes to R is, and I don't know how much of this you can tell us yet, but when and how much?
N will be out towards the end of the year, and then pricing will announce as we get closer to that on-sale date. But I think we all understand how important that pricing is and where it's positioned. This is not me saying that. This is some of the reviews I've seen from what came from that event, but it's kind of what I thought in the beginning. It kind of slots in between. I'm not talking to pricing here necessarily. I'm just talking about maybe performance. But the outgoing Focus ST and the GTI, and then not quite a Civic Type R because we don't have that much. There's a little bit of a horsepower disadvantage. And I've driven both Veloster N and Civic Type R at Streets of Willow, and I can just say that Civic Type R was really nice. It was very clinical, very did its job and did it well. But Veloster N was really actually fun. I was smiling after I got out of it. There was rotation in it. It just made you feel alive, and that's what Biermann likes to do is build a car that's fun to drive. He's not about total lap times because sometimes in that chase for that extra 3/10 you can make compromises to the vehicle that maybe not everybody could exploit. Only a professional driver does or could, and he wants to make fun that's approachable and confident, inspiring, and fun for everybody. I think that car's definitely going to deliver on that messaging.
Yeah, and certainly if you've got a guy coming from BMW's M division, that's a heck of a pedigree. Working on that car. So. Good on you. I'm going to tighten these wheels back down so we don't break your pretty press car here. And we're going to put it on the scale because everybody is dying to see what it weighs. How much of a consideration? Yeah, everybody, especially in our world, track people, autocross people, everybody is hung up on weight. How much of a consideration is weight for you guys on a manufacturer's end? I mean, I know you've got cafe standards to meet.
It's very important. It's something with the R&D guys and engineers deal with all the time. But we spoke to this a little bit earlier. Cars are getting bigger. Safety regulations are getting more stringent, and you've got the partial offset regulations and everything. These cars are getting bigger and heavier, and you're constantly battling that. The weight, and based on my specs, it's actually this car hasn't gone up too much from the outgoing car. So I'll be curious to see what it does, and even if there's like a corner balancing or something that we could look at too, because I'd be kind of curious myself to see what it comes in at.
Yeah, we'll certainly have individual weights here. I'm getting our scale cranked up here. And Chris, I need longer arms. I just switched away from my progressive glasses because I hated them, but now I'm realizing I can't actually read anything anymore. So let me zero this baby out. Okay, so I believe all of our guesses are in. Yeah, actually, somebody made a great point on Facebook that weight costs money to ship on boats. So there are just as many considerations, on the manufacturing end as there are certainly on the performance end when it comes to saving pounds here and there. All right, so let us now lower this baby onto our intercomp scales for our first ever intercomp What's It Weigh segment. Very excited to have intercomp aboard the show. These intercomp scales, I'll be honest with you guys. We have a set of cheap scales too, and the difference between a good set of scales and a cheap set of scales is marked. One of the biggest differences is the cheap scales, if the temperature changes 10 degrees, their calibration does not stay constant the way these intercoms do. These are also built like absolute tanks. I am not ever worried about throwing these in a trailer, taking them to the track. There is a difference between cheap eBay scales and quality motorsport grade equipment, and it is never more evident than in these intercoms. Chris, I feel like we need to do more for the first intercomp What's It Weigh segment. I feel like this is almost anticlimactic. We're just going to put a car on the scales and weigh it. Let me get the iPad so I can see in real time as people react to the weight of this Hyundai Veloster R-Spec. We need a song or something, don't we? We need like a bumper or a song, like a big show number. Come up. What's it weigh? Is it heavy? Is it light? What's it weigh? Can you guess it just from sight? What's it weigh? Will you guess wrong or guess right? Tell me, what's it weigh? From Intercomp. It's the stupidest show on the internet, Chris. Thank you for stopping me before I did that, by the way. Okay, here we go. Enough screwing around. What's It Weigh, presented by Intercomp. Moment of truth here, Mike. Okay, she's down. She's on all fours. Wow. I'm going to say everybody pretty much guessed high on this thing. We got a total weight of 2,791 pounds with a full tank of gas, no driver. And we've got 859, 856. Let's take a look at .5% on the nose, and so that would be 38.5% on the back. So, a fairly realistic front wheel drive number, but 2791. Mike, was that about where you thought it was going to be?
Yeah, it's maybe just a little bit underneath. Like I said, I had to go back and check how, like, all the fluids and how we do our weights, but I show it starting at about 2830. So we're pretty much in the ballpark. So I'm very glad to hear that. If you could hold that up too, I'd like to see those individual corners again as well.
Yeah, here I think I hit the wrong button there. Okay, there you go. So yeah, 859 and 856 on the two fronts, 536 and 540 on the rears. So a really even split. The left-right balance is within 0.1%, but within a couple hundredths of a percent. And front and rear, about 61-38, which is fairly typical front wheel drive. So yeah, nice job keeping the weight. So how much aluminum is actually used in the construction of this?
Well, it's actually, like I said, some of the carriers and whatnot and hubs on the suspension are aluminum, but aluminum's expensive too. So Hyundai's also a huge steel company, if you're aware, and we use what's called advanced high-strength steel, lighter, stronger, and that's where we're able to maintain and control some of the weight there. Aluminum hoods and everything else get kind of pricey quick. So this advanced high-strength steel, which I think there's about 52% of the bodies in this advanced high-strength steel, helps manage the weight.
Awesome. All right, well, well done. And we'll go through the guesses, and Katie will contact you on the back end, whoever won our inaugural Intercomp What's It Weigh competition. We'll send out a DM, and you will be eligible for a fabulous GRM prize package. And big props to Intercomp for being our newest supporter here on the show with a very cool idea. Every twice a month, we're going to be weighing either a car or just something we grabbed from around the shop, giving away a prize to our closest guesser, and we're very excited to have Intercomp aboard. So, Mike, thank you very much for hanging out with us tonight. We're impressed with this. I hope we get an invite to the N-Spec preview here. And any hopefully maybe in the fall sometime we will be checking that out. We're very excited about that, and getting that car on the show as well. It's exciting to see Hyundai playing in that category, and I'm sure you guys are excited about it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this, and yeah, hopefully we can do something similar when Veloster N comes out.
We will welcome a fellow MR2 guy. We will always welcome you on the show, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. Big hand, everybody, for Mike there from Hyundai, and we will say goodnight. Talk to you later, my friend.
All right. Thank you very much. Take care.
All right, let me get these cans off here, everybody. That was Mike Evanoff from Hyundai. Thank you very much to him for joining us. Thanks to Yvonne, our media rep from Hyundai, for setting that up. We really appreciate all the hard work they do. And it's cool as a journalist and as an enthusiast to hear that there are car companies out there with people just like us making these cars cool to come out to us. And under 2,800 pounds with a full tank of gas, that's pretty impressive for a modern car. So nice job on Hyundai. We are I don't know who won yet. We will figure out who won. We'll go through all the comments, figure out who won our inaugural Intercomp What's It Weigh competition. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, everybody. Thanks to our friends at CRC Industries. You can check them out at crcindustries.com, or even better, check them out at a retailer near you: Lowe's, Home Depot, Harbor Freight, Advanced Auto Parts, O'Reilly Auto Parts, Napa Auto Parts. If you're buying that CRC stuff, folks, you're buying not only a fantastic product, you are buying a product from a company that cares about what we're doing. They care enough to support shows like this. They care enough to support events like our $2,000 challenge. They care enough to support teams like James Clay and Bimmer World in the Continental Challenge. They are involved in this world, and we hope that you will be patrons of them as well, because by doing so, you are getting a great product, but you're also helping us out just a little bit. Also, go to Autobooks Aerobooks, autobooks-aerobooks.com. If you're ever out in Southern California, you owe it to yourself to check them out there in Burbank. They are one of the hubs of automotive culture there in Southern California. Fantastic live events every week, cars and coffees, cruise-ins, and author signings with folks. Lynn St. James was there a couple weeks ago. Bruce Myers, the designer of the Myers Manx, was there a month or so ago. Cool stuff going on there every week. If you can't make it out there in person, check them out at autobooks-aerobooks.com for tens of thousands of books, magazines, DVDs, videos, collectibles, anything about transportation or motorsports you can possibly imagine. They got it. Folks, that is the show tonight. Michael is sad that he didn't win. Yeah, I need to get my progressives back, because I can't hold this thing far enough from my eyes to read it anymore. But thank you for all of the very kind comments. Thank you for watching tonight. And we did have a comment from somebody that drove a Veloster Turbo a couple years ago, was not impressed. All new chassis. This is the all new second generation chassis. I will freely admit that I was not a huge fan of the first gen Veloster myself. This is a substantial upgrade, and I would invite you to check one of these babies out, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, especially out the door for $23,700 with a destination fee. It's a lot of car for the money. Big thanks to Chris behind the camera. Thanks to Katie running our social media with her neck brace on and her giant bottle of pills after her car wreck. I hope to have her back in the director's chair by next week. So big shout out to her, and she's got to find another car now. So that'll be exciting. And that is it. Folks, I'm JG Pasterjack. This is Grassroots Motorsports Live, presented by CRC Industries. Thanks to Mike Evanoff from Hyundai. Thanks to Chris behind the camera. Thanks to Katie in the director's chair. We will see you again next week. Data, going faster through data acquisition with Peter Kraus. With our friend Peter Kraus is going to be helping us analyze data to go faster on track. Very cool show, 9 p.m. Wednesday Eastern. We will see you then. Good night, everybody.